Hello. Good evening, wherever you may be in Kentucky and beyond. I am Kimberly Cecil Jones coming to you live from Jefferson County, the largest county in the state of Kentucky, filling in tonight for our normal host, Aaron, and he should be back next week. But welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thanks for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news of the week, including a couple of stories that exposes the Kentucky GOP as having zero fiscal responsibility. Then we've got a great interview for you. We're speaking with Molly Gene Crain, the Democratic candidate for Kentucky's 27th Senate District. And finally, we'll close out with an important call to action. But first, are you ready to turn Kentucky purple? I know you are. If you've hunted through literally billions of websites, which we do, podcasts and YouTube videos to find us, welcome. We're glad you're here, and we hope you agree with us that Kentucky deserves better than Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Jamie Comer, and the GOP supermajorities in the General Assembly. Supermajorities which block our governor time and time again from moving Kentucky forward. Despite the challenges facing Kentucky, we've had some highlights, and we rejected so many things to keep abortion protections in our state constitution. We reelected Andy Beshear, our governor. We can get things done in this state, but it's clear there's still lots of work to do in our state to win better electoral outcomes for our commonwealth. Unless you want your tax dollars siphoned away from public schools and sent to unaccountable religious schools or just kicked back to rich folks. Between now and November, 111 days from now, we'll be working for better electoral outcomes in Kentucky. And we hope that you'll support Progress Kentucky in our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth. Make a contribution right now via our secure online website, which is on the screen right now. Act Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500. It all adds up. So please, get your family, your mama, your daddy, your cousins, your sisters, and your brothers, and your best friends to give to Progress Kentucky. We need your help to continue the work that we do tirelessly that we do that for the state of Kentucky and for you. So it's now time to check in on my co-host today. And I want you to let us know who and where you are and what are you protesting today. Oh, and you there on the internet, we mean you too. Let's hear what you're protesting today. Feel free to put it in the chat while we're sharing ours. Mine says we have got to elect more Democrats in Kentucky. Just to be fair, we need to elect more Democrats in Kentucky. And I have my sidekick with me, the co-host for the evening, a Dr. Clardy. And what does your sign say, sir?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say, don't blame me for Jamie Comer. I voted for Jimmy Osbrooks, and I'm going to be voting for Aaron Marshall in November. That's for starters. My campaign sign says, no how, no way, no J.D. Vance in November. President Trump chose an extremist to be his vice presidential running mate, someone who had very few credentials to become a United States senator, much less to become vice president of the United States. He has far less experience than our current vice president. And he is a radical, especially on the question of reproductive choice and so many other things. Unlike Trump, he will read his policy memoranda if he becomes vice president, and he will become a very true MAGA acolyte and a very, very dangerous adversary. And I issue my call again, as I have over the last year, for the Kentucky Democratic Party to make reproductive rights a core part of its campaign in 2024 and beyond. We've got to reverse Roe versus Wade.
Exactly. I mean, it's getting really, really bad now. Okay.
Yes.
I don't think anybody can deny that. But a quick national check in, really quickly here. As folks know, we're all about Kentucky politics here on Kernels of Truth. So, despite the absolutely crazy, and I mean crazy and intense national news swirling around us, we're going to remain focused in the stories that come out of Frankfurt or involve our Kentucky delegation in DC. So, despite strong feelings and plenty of thoughts that I know all of us have, we could share on national shenanigans. We'll go ahead and skip that, except we couldn't ignore the best part of the RNC in Milwaukee so far. How about Kentucky's senior senator being booed at the RNC? How do you like that? Let's take a look
Oh,
at this.
wow. Mm.
That just goes to show you that the Republican Party doesn't even want the Grim Reaper anymore. And that would be the senior senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, aka the Grim Reaper.
Wow.
So he's not really loved anywhere right now, is he? So that's just how it is. But he's on his way out anyway. So the first story that we have up today, Dr. Clarity, I know that you've got a great story. I can't wait to hear it.
Yes. Right after Senator McConnell got elected in 1984, he came to my hometown of Fulton, Kentucky, South Fulton, Tennessee, for an event called the Great American Celebration. He was young. He was a freshman senator, very likable, very moderate, very pragmatic. He fielded my question about the 1985-86 fiscal year budget very professionally. And he had, up until the last 20 years, been a very progressive, not progressive, pragmatic, moderate. But he went over to the dark side, especially since 2015. And the dark side came back to bite him hard. This booing kind of reminds me of in 1964 when the Goldwater acolytes booed Nelson Rockefeller on the floor of the convention when he was speaking, because the view was that Rockefeller was not a true-to-life conservative. And that was very unfortunate. And I actually felt bad for Senator McConnell, but not really. The Bible I read says, you sow to the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. And he had reaped that whirlwind a few days ago.
The chickens have come home to roost, but I also know about the irresponsibility of the GOP and
Yes.
how our governor, what did our governor do, Dr. Clarity?
Well, let me just say before I get into that, budgets are moral documents, and budgets reflect the moral and the priorities that any legislative body has. And clearly, the Kentucky Republican supermajority in the General Assembly has shown feckless irresponsibility. In the first story of Kentucky's Republican Party fiscal irresponsibility, our governor, and rightly so, Governor Andy Beshear, pointed out that the supermajorities in the General Assembly could not even be bothered to actually do the math and appropriate funds to implement their policy agenda. Instead of being satisfied to simply pass 20 bills, which put significant strains on state agencies, but they did not fund the additional work. That is feckless irresponsibility. So this week, the laws that will go into effect in 2024 with the Kentucky General Assembly, so the strains, such things as Suffer Kentucky Act or the Celebrate Momnibus bill would become the law of the land. But instead, the governor warned the General Assembly before they adjourned that a number of their legislative directive programs didn't really inform budgetary expenditures. So of the 200 bills passed by the General Assembly and go into effect, only 20 of them are going into legal limbo. In other words, there's no money to fund them. How irresponsible is that? And here's a list of some of these. As much as $150 million in taxpayer funds will be required to pay for these legislative items. Everything from expanding foster care to cover kinship housing, monitoring to review the forever chemicals from our drinking water, which, as well as Senate Bill 346, the Coal Protection Act, to require significant new bureaucratic hurdles in order to allow utility companies to close down old coal-fire power plants and replace them with cheaper, more efficient renewable energy options. Estimated to cost well over $1 million. Hear me well. $1 million in taxpayer funds. Unfortunately, hung up would be for the statewide system for reporting child abuse. This is an essential state function with a price tag of $43 million. Not too cheap to implement, and irresponsibly moved without forwarding any kind of accompanying budgetary support. This is the party that wants to, quote unquote, make America great again. They can't even pay the bills right. Is anyone surprised?
I'm certainly not surprised
Yeah.
at anything. And I tell everybody all the time that I don't put anything past anybody anymore. I guess my innocence or my optimism kind of went downhill somewhat in 2016 when
Yeah.
Trump was elected as the alleged president. So
Mm.
it just really did something to me mentally, I guess. So when we talk about these things, I say the same thing every week. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised about Senate Bill 349. I'm not surprised about House Bill 271. And they
Right.
don't have the money. Like, are we cashing checks that we really can't cash? Is that what's going on? Or is that
Sounds like it to me.
well, I mean, didn't all of us graduate high school and didn't all of us know 2 plus 2 is 4? Or is there some type of hindrance to actually knowing how to count
Kim,
in
let me tell you
Franklin?
something. The Republican Party in this state and in this country can never again give me a lecture about fiscal responsibility or even morality. They can't do it now, especially with their standard bearer having 34 convictions against him, and a convicted felon, an ex-felon, a guy that's just getting out of prison this morning. Is Peter Navarro is going to be addressing their convention tonight. So no, miss me on the fiscal responsibility lecture and the family values lecture to Republican Party. You lost credibility on both.
Well, I want to segue into this about the school choice bill, or rather the public dollars for private schools. Constitutional amendment is not cheap.
Mm-mm.
A great report from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy was released this week, and it was about this report from friends of the show. Kentucky Center for Economic Policy estimates the impact, including by school district, if Amendment 2 is approved and the General Assembly enacts legislation to subsidize private schools using public funds. And for your information, establishing a program proportional to what Florida, oh my God,
Mm.
not DeSantis, not his state, right?
Right.
It's proportional to what Florida, the largest state program, has in place, would cost $1.19 billion annually from the Kentucky state budget. That equals the cost of employing nearly 10,000 Kentucky public school teachers and employees. And now there is a much smaller voucher program that's just 1/6 the size of Florida's and smaller than the rapidly growing programs in Arizona, Indiana, Iowa, North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin would cost. Kentucky's budget, $199 million. It would be equivalent to the cost of employing 1,645 public school personnel. The report shows that reduced state contributions to public schools budgets are the expected source of funding for private school vouchers in Kentucky, meaning the numbers in the report reflect potential cuts to public school funding and staffing. If voters decide voucher programs should be allowed, the report also documents that recent experience of other states showed that 65 to 90% of voucher costs go to subsidized families already sending their children to private schools or planning to do so. A group whose average this is shocking right here.
Mhm.
A group whose average household income in Kentucky is 54% higher than public school families. Providing vouchers to that group will easily cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars based on the number of Kentucky students already in private schools. So it seems pretty clear to me this is not a policy our Commonwealth can afford. So, what do you think about this, Dr. Clarity?
Well, I mean, it's like saying that water's wet. This to me, and I'm not getting into conspiracy theories. I'm actually citing historical fact and precedent. This is something that the right has been wanting to do to public education really since Brown versus Board of Education, and that is to defund it and to resegregate. I'm just going to just outright say it. And so this is why we're starting to see this attack on public schools and public school funding. The super Republican majority in Frankfurt knew exactly what they were doing with this. And
Yes.
so this to me is very, very deliberate and very planned and very scary.
It's a lot of scary things that they're doing, and we have to be cognizant that they are also making this state where a lot of our young people, our best and our brightest, are leaving the state in record numbers. And even companies are trying to leave. However, our governor, being as great as he is, has that je ne sais quoi, or however you say it. I don't know how you say it,
Je
but
ne sais
he,
quoi.
yes, je ne sais quoi, merci beaucoup. He has that. Say it one more time. Andy
Je ne
Bashir
sais
has.
quoi.
Yes, he's got it. He has that it factor. So he's
Yes.
been very, very positive, very optimistic, and he has brought business to Kentucky for Kentuckians.
Andy
Okay.
Bashir has been a remarkable governor. He did great things in his first term. He is doing great things now. And I'm of the opinion that he is not done. He is going to be a major factor in national politics going forward. And the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, would be very irresponsible to pass him over because he is the future of the Democratic Party in this country. You can take that to the bank.
It's almost like Camelot is coming back again, isn't it? He's got the
Yes.
beautiful wife, the well-mannered, behaved children, and you know how some of these
Yes.
children are today. And he looks like, he looks like the guy next door, right?
He's John Boy Walton meets John Kennedy. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
he's got the perfect setup to become a national leader, and I would definitely encourage him to at least consider the possibility. I know he wants to finish the job that he started 4 years ago, and even back in December, but I think he's got the chops to make it on the national stage. I said that about another young politician too in 2004, and I wasn't wrong. And that politician's name is Barack Obama.
Barack Obama. You know what? I have a t-shirt, Dr. Clarity. I have a t-shirt that actually says on there, wanted. And it has a picture of Obama on it. And it says, when seen, please return him back to the White House.
Ooh, I
No
tell you, I
drama,
miss him. I
Obama.
miss him. I miss him.
I miss, I hate to even say this, but oh my God, I miss George Bush. I
I ain't
miss,
gonna go that far, but
well, I'm going to say compared to what we've got today, compared to what we have today, it was a lot more going across the aisle and helping each other.
It was the thing that history will never forgive George W. Bush for. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. He seems like he is one, but the fact that history will never forgive him for going into that war unprovoked in Iraq on the basis of bad intelligence. History will burn that into our memory like a brand, and rightfully so. I do see your point, though. He was a very civil person. He was a decent person. I didn't worry about the future of the republic when Bush won both times. And I voted for Al Gore. I voted for John Kerry. But when Bush won, I did not fear for the future of the country. With
Well,
Donald
with this,
Trump, I had worry about that every day.
how about my daughter said that if by chance he's elected, she will not retire out of the Air Force. She will actually stay in until the term is up, if there's going to be term limits anymore. But, right here in Kentucky, we have one of the greatest governors
We
in the
do.
entire Americas, right? And
Right.
we have the best governor that's fair to everyone.
He
It's
is.
not like he's just doing a lot for Democrats. He's doing a lot for everybody, even those that have tried to smear his name,
Right.
even to those that, profess that they hate him.
Mm.
Our governor, I'm just going to say this, Dr. Clardy, he's the bomb.com.
He is. And I'm going to tell you something. During the worst of that pandemic, the one thing I could look forward to was coming home out of ice, because I isolated myself in the office, wore masks, hand sanitizers and all that. When I came back home, the one reassuring presence that I saw on television was Governor Bashir giving his daily briefings, and he would say, "We're going to make it, and we're going to make it together." That gave me hope during those hellish years.
Exactly. Why can't everybody in Frankfurt be like that?
Right.
There's just so many things, but we do have a call to action, though.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely have a call to action
Yes.
today. And the call to action is going to be about join a Project 2025 discussion group. And
Yes.
hey, y'all, hey, y'all, if you don't know what Project 2025 is, you need to do your
Mm-hmm.
research. It's a 900 and something page document that the leader of the Heritage Foundation, which is a very ultra conservative foundation, and they're trying to get rid of everything.
They are.
Everything that you know today, a lot of the freedoms that you have today,
Mm-hmm.
they want to take those away from you, such as DE&I, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies were hiring diversity, and let's not forget, women are included in that.
They
I
are.
don't care if you're a white woman, black woman, yellow woman, green woman, okay? You were included in the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just today, a big company, Microsoft, of all companies in the world, we all got Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're not an Apple guy or girl, or you're not a Mac girl or guy, you're going to be Microsoft, just like me. I love it. And they just fired, or should I say lay off,
Fired.
the entire staff
Mm-hmm.
in the DE&I. So it's starting, y'all. You
It is.
know, we need to resist Project 2025 / Agenda 47. So, take a screenshot of it, a picture of it, whatever you need to do. Let's get on that Facebook page to continue the discussion and to continue, how are we going to stop this?
Let
And
go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no. All I was going to say was, I'm a history guy. I'm a history nerd. I teach history and professor of history at Murray State University. I'm one person who says, if you want to know how we got here, go all the way back to old pamphlets and old ideas coming out of the John Birch Society. in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Go all the way back to the 1964 Republican platform. And then you multiply all of that rhetoric times 10. The Republican Party, the conservative movement itself, and they're not true conservatives, if you ask me, they have gone to the far, 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 oh, so far, far right. And when you look at governments who go in that particular direction, nothing ends well. So we nip it at the bud now. Please get educated about Project 2025 and share it on social media. Have discussion groups. Meet your friends over coffee. Talk about it over family dinners. I know you don't want to talk about politics or religion at dinners. I get it. But doggone it, the stakes are too high to let this go. Let this slide. We cannot roll over in this election. Period. Full stop.
No,
Regardless of
no, 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 we can't. And, you know, there's even more elections coming about as well that are
yes,
equally important
yes,
because a lot of people, excuse me, don't understand how government works.
right.
And I remember when Obama won, I heard people saying, "Oh yeah, um, I'm going to, uh, yeah, Obama's gonna give me money so I can buy me a brand new car and do this and do it." And I'm like, man, you don't even understand
Not even
the
close.
legislative. That's why they're called lawmakers. They're the
Mhm.
ones that vote on the money. They're the ones that make the laws.
That's right.
Okay, and even here in Kentucky, you have to realize when the General Assembly gets together and they make laws, it's going to come about pretty quickly.
Yes, and they can override any veto that the governor puts in place, and that's
Yes,
awful. They have a
yes,
veto-proof majority in both houses.
exactly. And then the other thing is, in addition to that, your local races with your council people,
Mhm.
all of that, you're going to see that even sooner than the state. They can make a law today, and then tomorrow it's in effect. So people have to be smart enough, and I know my peeps in Kentucky are intelligent enough to look at facts and know what needs to happen.
That's right.
But getting back on my daughter really quickly,
Hmm.
just to let you all know, she got a certain job that she wanted. She's only got about 3 years to go to retire from the Air Force. She is an intelligence officer, but
Nice.
she is going to be the special advisor to the Royal Directorate in of Saudi Arabia.
Good.
So she's still Air Force, but she won't be categorized as Air Force. She'll be categorized as Joint Command.
Hmm.
So I'm like, oh yes, my daughter is so small, so and she's so little, but she packs a punch, and the girl is smart. And when she tells me she's not moving back to Kentucky, it really hurts me.
Yeah.
It hurts me
Yeah.
that she doesn't want to come back to the home where I raised her, where she graduated high school, uh, from a parochial school, Sacred Heart Academy.
Right.
And we didn't have vouchers or anything like that. I just had to work 90 jobs to make sure I paid for it. It was like paying for
Absolutely.
college.
Right.
But we see the fruits of that labor somewhat. My son graduated from public school, and he absolutely is a gem as well. So either one is fine, but I just don't think that we need to spend money that needs to go into our public school system
At all.
for other schools,
Nope.
religious, um, Montessori, whatever the case may be. They're going to get money from
Yeah.
their alumni.
Yeah.
My
And
daughter gets like
donors.
$10,000 a year. They're going to get money from their fundraisers. And plus, the very rich and wealthy, their children do attend those schools a lot of times.
They do.
And we can't even get enough teachers to work right now that they're trying to recruit from Puerto Rico and everywhere to try to get teachers here. And when people do try to go through the system to at least be a substitute teacher or be
Right.
on the roster because of their experience and maybe schooling or whatever it may be, the process is so long and tedious.
I know.
I'm just interested, like, what do you know, and is your record clean?
That's it.
You
And do you
know?
have a passion for it? Because let's be honest, you're not going to get, and that's sad to say, but you're not going to get too terribly rich being a teacher. Sad to say.
Hmm.
Athletes, yeah.
Exactly.
Movie stars, yeah. The higher professions like medicine, law, yeah. Teachers, no. I remember growing up seeing teachers in high school or I went to high school in Tennessee, who had to supplement their income by working at Walmart. And another
Yes.
one who owned their own small business selling sporting goods. That should be unacceptable in any society that values education. So if you want to go into teaching, be prepared, not to make so much money. You've got to love it. You've got to love being in the classroom. You got to love engaging young minds. And the problem that the right has is that they want to see society dumbed down. They're
Yeah.
trying to ban books. They're trying to restrict what we teach in the classroom. And I've been teaching for over 30 some odd years, and I'm going to tell you something. I don't like this trend at all. So
I don't like it at all either because I ended up graduating from high school here in Louisville. Even though I'm from Illinois, I did come here my second semester and finish school because my mom was running for alderman,
nice.
which is now your council people.
Mhm.
And she was heavily involved in politics, community work, lobbying, all of these type of things. So it's in my blood. But the way I saw things go down with my mom and all of them compared to now,
Mhm.
it's like some other dimension.
It is.
But guess what? Guess what, Dr. Clardy? We got Molly. We got Molly. We got Molly. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Hi,
Molly Gene
everyone.
Crain,
Hello.
Kentucky's 27th State Senate District. She's a farmer. Oh, wow. She's an Emerge graduate. Yes, I know about Emerge. She's got a law degree and an MBA. So that means she's smart.
Yes,
She's the
very.
boss Democratic candidate looking, I got to say that right. She's the boss, okay? She's not a boss. She's a boss. There's a
Thank
difference,
you.
okay? Democratic candidate looking to take down anti-Andy and anti-abortion hardliner Stephen West. Boo. And represent Harrison, Bourbon, Nicholas, Robertson, Mason, Fleming, Rowan, and some of Fayette counties. It's a big old district, and we're excited to hear from her now. Miss Crain, welcome to Kernels of Truth. How is the campaign trail treating you?
It's great. I'm really happy to be here in the latter part of July. I've been doing this since November 8th of 2023 after Governor Andy Beshear won his gubernatorial election. And yeah, I'm still in it to win it. We've knocked 1,600 doors. We've got to hit 5,000 by September 1st. I've been endorsed by the governor. Just really, really happy to be here. And I'm happy that I've had such a long time to lay the foundation. I think the hardest thing about this campaign has been there are people from Fleming and Mason. They know who I am. And in the Meadowthorpe portion where I live in Lexington, the family farm is in Fleming County. But I think there's still been just definitely a process of laying the foundation for this campaign real quick. Whatever I say on call time, I've been in 4 parades, 2 Christmas, 2 4th of July parades. I've had a meet and greet in every county. Former Representative Sandy Overley, she's like, well, the money will come. You got to have a meet and greet in every county. I'm like, I did everything that lady told me to do.
Mhm.
And I did that. But I also, per a recommendation, whenever I was having my Emerge Kentucky interview, that I needed to go to all the city council meetings. And so there are 8 counties in the district. 7 of them are full and rural. The 8th is the Fayette in part. And so I've been to all the city council meetings in Fleming, Mason, Rowan, Robertson, Harrison, Nicholas, Bourbon, with Fayette in part being the pizza pie that's left over. So yeah, I'm super stoked. I'm ready for election day.
I'm ready for you as well.
Absolutely.
One quick question though. Going in that particular direction with
Yeah.
some of the greats up there, Senator Gerald Neal is running again at this particular time, coming from Louisville, from Jefferson County. Tell me the top 3 things that you're really talking to the constituency about. What are the top 3 things of your campaign and the top 3 things that you would do starting on day 1?
Yeah. Well, we actually do it by 4, and we talk to it. We mirror like 4-H, head, heart, hands, health, which is very aligned with the district. And we do it. I'm the candidate that supports our families, our farms, funding for our public schools, infrastructure, and economic development plans, and to fix Frankfurt. And so, I think that a lot of campaigns, a lot of candidates might see themselves as like a one issue without doing it intentionally. But very early on, we wanted to make sure that this was comprehensive. It was holistic, supporting our families so our families can go from surviving to thriving, where your work week dollars go to not only your expenses, but allow you to invest in something extra, where you have access to quality, affordable health care just down the road rather than up the interstate. That was something that really pegged my family. Having access to mental health care. It just wasn't there for them when I was growing up in Flemingsburg. And we can talk about that later about my family, but I think that for a lot of folks who live in Eastern Kentucky, they're driving an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to get the health care that they need. And we got to change that. It's not fair. So then moving to our farms, I think the Kentucky state government needs to hear the voice of our farmers, making sure that we incentivize the next generation of farmers, and continuing to emphasize localizing our farming and agricultural economy, making sure that we preserve the land and also incentivize the next generation. And then funding for our public schools. I was looking at the Kentucky Policy Report recently, and based on their numbers, the 7 rural counties in my district could lose as much as $32 million from the budget cuts, and that equals 269 jobs. That's absolutely devastating in the worst case scenario. And we need, it's just really unfortunate that that these rural counties would be left out as a result of that. So I unequivocally support voting no on Amendment 2 and keeping the taxpayer dollars in the public school system. That's where they need to be, and our Kentucky Constitution supports that. Making sure that we continue to support our infrastructure, our roads. A lot of rural roads continue to need repairs and work, and expanding, and making sure that there are folks who are following through on that. In Rowan County, the conservative legislature forgot to put funding, or the adequate funding needed for Highway 377, the continued expansion of it in the budget. And I went to a town hall meeting to make sure that folks knew that I cared, right? We can't allow for those hiccups, right? We need to make sure that, even if somebody else was in the office before you, that, we're continuing to pass the baton, right? And passing the intellect, rather than weighing in on cultural wars that distract us from making sure that folks in Eastern Kentucky have their roads after their property has been eminent domain, right? And they thought that it was going to happen soon, right? And then why's the delay? it's just absolutely wild. And then ultimately, you know, fix Frankfurt. If you're looking at it all, if all these things happen, right? Ideally, we don't fix everything, but it's just a wake up call to say, you know, what are we doing to our foundations that make Kentucky amazing and beautiful? And you know, I just remember growing up in the 90s. Maybe we just didn't know as much back then, but I felt like we were in a different place. And then watching the slow degradation of that has been it's been traumatic, right? I think about, you know, my parents are no longer living, and I stand on the shoulders of giants of the hard scrabble life of my grandfathers on both sides. I'm Gene Barber's granddaughter of the Bluegrass Stockyards, and the place where it burned down in Lexington is located in the district, and also the new one out on Ironworks Pike. And you know, he was born in a home with a dirt floor in eastern Kentucky in Fleming County, and he had a very successful agricultural life. The grandfather on the other side of the family, we had Crain's Tobacco Warehouse in Maysville, and just the degradation of I don't know, the removal of that industry, the tobacco buyout. I mean, we know the reasons why, but it tore at the social fabric, and then there was nothing to replace it. And even though the buyout happened, you know, what were we doing to, I think, supplant supplant or like continue to support the community when they didn't have that anymore? And I don't think that anybody really gave that a thought, but it devastated places like Fleming County and Mason County. And I think that, you know, they're strong people and I love them, but in some ways, I think in the reverberations of those moments, folks are really hanging on by a thread. And we've got to think about, like, what can we do next, and how can we support and both preserve livelihood and, you know, make sure that folks are really feel proud to live in those places, right? Or don't feel, or maybe
Exactly.
some don't feel like they can, right?
Right.
Because, you know, they
Right.
move closer to Lexington to be able to have access to the things that they don't have access to. So I went on a tirade. I really did.
No. That was
No,
excellent
this is
information.
good.
But Dr. Clardy, he has a question for you, though.
First of all, you have my full support, Molly, for sure.
Thank you.
I think you make a fine addition to the General Assembly, and I can't wait to call you Senator.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, my question for you: you have a legal background, you have a business background, and you know you critiqued what the supermajority did. I thought very, very well. How will you be a champion then in the state Senate and on Capitol Hill in Frankfurt for fiscal responsibility to make sure that this state can pay its bills?
Right. I mean, I wish I had the number. I don't want to misspeak, right? Because I think about how much money is in the rainy day fund? Is it like inching towards
close to
$4 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
But I mean, we're just not. I view it as very much like a scarcity mindset. I don't know. I had my parents and my family were very, very good teachers, are very thoughtful people, but at the same time, it's almost kind of like time traveling, like the rags to riches story of like, I've described it as like in Harry Potter, whenever they travel by flue powder, they don't come all together at once. Like they're missing like an ear, right? And I almost kind of call it like the story of comeuppance. And, you know, sometimes when it happens really quickly, I think that we don't realize the degree to which our generational trauma continues to follow us, and not enough time has happened in between. Like, what genetically are we passing down? Like, how many people in the legislature are still kind of in the throes of that, and how, like, I myself as a compassionate person see like, whoa, they're human and like they're in it and they're not making good decisions, and then that results in them, I think, not balancing the budget well, or maybe getting into a scarcity mindset where they hoard. And then they don't feel, they feel like they have to continue to pack it away whenever like it's safe and the money's there. And also like running things like a business isn't the same as running the state government, right?
Exactly.
Like
That's
you
true.
have money, you allocate it for funding, and then you expect to have X for the next year, right? And so we can't, like, we're not fully paying our teachers. We're, you know, really embarrassing. I think that we have these squabbles where, the rural Democrats, I think Robin Webb, but also Chad Aul, even though his district is in the 40502 in Lexington, talking about having to create situations where they allow bus drivers or folks to drive minibuses for kids because they don't want to pay for the Class C license, right? But they ultimately like funded that. I remember driving through my district, and I think I was crossing through like Bath County. You kind of slip into Bath County right before you get to Fleming County, and there was a bus on the side of the road that had I don't know, like the way that, like, in gymnastics where you can like flip up a new number and like you scored a 10. It had like that on it, but it was raising the price for what they would pay bus drivers. You could tell that it had been edited and someone had put another number because that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to get people to, take their kids to school. And I think that's completely tragic that we are, this scarcity mindset is preventing them from investing in our lives and our children's lives. And we're toying with people's realities.
Yes.
And I don't know. I've talked to even people about school lunches and how they don't feel like it was the same as it was when they were growing up. And then you think about inflation and how that has probably affected folks' ability to, invest in school lunch in the way that they do. But like, it's senseless because the money's there, right? We're
Right.
waiting for the so-called rainy day, but it's raining every day. It's raining
It's
every day.
storming.
Say that.
It's
It's
storming.
raining every day.
I know Dr. Clardy, he has another question for you.
Yeah.
Yes. You mentioned about putting Kentucky farmers' interests ahead. And I think that's a great idea. Several years ago, the Energy Environment Cabinet, along with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, were putting together several initiatives to use biodiesel, biomass, biofuels, and things of that sort as a renewable energy source. And as I saw it, because I served on Governor Beshear's board dealing with renewable energy some 10 years ago, I saw a great opportunity for Kentucky farmers to be able to sell some of those products as renewable energy sources, whether we're talking about biodiesel, biomass, ethanol, whatever the case may be, as a reliable source. Would you be willing to maybe possibly support that in the General Assembly? Because I think this would be a great help to Kentucky farmers, and I wanted to get your feedback from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are a lot of ways that we can innovate. And I think that progressive agricultural strategies have existed for a while. But again, I think there's a scarcity of mindset attached to it changing, and it's happening anyway, right? And I think that I know you're talking about biodiesel, but then there's like other more the issues that I get spoken
Biomass,
to about is solar or like electric vehicles, and for like the electric
wind.
Yes, and wind. And for what's really unfortunate about, like, if you want to have an electric vehicle, right? The Ford F-150 seems like your only option. It's incredibly expensive. But also the state legislature doesn't, we could provide tax breaks for, folks looking to invest in an EV vehicle for their farm, right? Provide that incentive. But they're not incentivizing it. If anything, they've created a sales tax on people who want to purchase an electric or hybrid vehicle to, I guess, incentivize them to not do that, right? Which I think is really tragic. I think that we should be trying to find a number of ways to make sure that we have like an integrated um, renewable energy future, right? When it comes to solar, I think that there's an argument there. There's the preserving the farmland that is agricultural farmland, and then it gets really dicey whenever people are talking about, well, where else could it go? And I think that there are places for marginal land use, but then that often involves like, is it abutting a subdivision, and then the subdivision weighs in. There are other ways that farmers could. I would like to see the energy companies pay farmers, right? Where there are things called agriculture. They are self-sustaining, right? Like get us away from the serfdom of it. Like empower people by their ability to make money for themselves. There's a strategy called agrivoltaics where you can lay out the panels and livestock can graze underneath. Or if there was just like a sect of the farmer's farm that could have solar, and then the energy company can pay them. And that just could be existing on their farm as passive income. But we're not, the legislature, the way that it currently is, isn't even allowing that for a possibility. I mean, it's to the extent where it's punitive. There are things that they could be doing to supporting the fairness of the contracts, like the corporate solar that comes in. They are created and drafted in such a way that they're not adequately supporting the interests of farmers. If they not lock into like a 30-year lease with the land, there's nothing in the contract that says that they're going to be able to clean it up afterwards, after they use it for solar for an extended period of time. I think sometimes it kind of smells of like in the cold days of broad form deed. It's not quite the same, but because of their lack of willingness to progress, they're ultimately creating a system that will make farmers fail on this issue, and they're losing money, and they're also getting shoddy contract deals. There's a plethora of things I think that could be done to do this more intelligently. Like the state of Indiana, I think does solar by cooperative. To make sure that folks are interdependent, that there's like the interdependent and localized grid, right? I mean, there's a way to legislate for that, but there's just this obvious refusal in the state of Kentucky. Another instance is like in Tennessee, the state pays for vaccination for cattle. State of Kentucky doesn't do that, and then you end up in situations where a vet loses their license, or somebody becomes a scapegoat for an issue where the state has decided as a collective to have that be borne on an individual, because in criminal court somebody has to be scapegoated. It's really unfortunate. That what I'm trying to say is that because the legislature is not progressing on these issues, it is it is harming the people who need assistance.
That's how it always goes. Tell the people.
Well, they're too busy fighting culture wars.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Tell the people, Molly, how they can contribute to your campaign. And we just ask of you and your team to share this video. You have answered the questions great.
Thank you.
Very informative. You do lend to someone listening to you that modicum of confidence
Thanks.
in
Appreciate
you.
it.
So how can the people how can they get with you and help
Yeah.
in your campaign and give you some money?
Yeah, go to mollygenecrain.com or just mollycrain.com. We got both domains, and there's a contribute button. Please go there. We could really use your support. We're serving up a grade A campaign. Kentucky's just got to meet us in the middle. The registration of this district is 51% Democrat, 40% Republican, and 9% other. It's flippable, it's winnable, and it's here. And we're going to knock all the doors this Saturday in Lexington. Feel free to meet us at the Casey's across from Leestown Road. We're going to do shifts at 10 a.m. and at 1 p.m. this afternoon. Would love to get to 5,000 doors a little bit sooner because there are days when I'm like, man, this is tough, but Kentucky's worth it. So
Kentucky is worth it. And I know that we're going to want to be speaking to you again.
Yeah.
I know this for a fact. I'm not psychic, but I just know. I know that I know, right?
You're psychic.
Isn't that right, Dr. Clardy? We know that we know.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Exactly.
Great. That's right.
So
we're going to get her in the state Senate for sure.
Thank you.
Exactly. I pray and I hope that we are able to call her Senator Molly Gene Crain. I like the way that sounds. What about you?
That's a nice ring.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you,
much,
Brian.
Molly. You've been a delight tonight and really informative. So we always appreciate you here at Kernels of Truth.
Thank
Are you a Kentucky Colonel? Are you a Kentucky Colonel?
My husband is. That was sent to him via a bachelor party. He's leaning in, looking. He is technically a Kentucky Colonel. Thumbs up.
But guess what?
I am not.
He needs to make you one. All he has to do is go on the website and fill out the information. And you need to be one so we can call you the honorable Colonel. There's no laughing matter on it. It's really serious.
Thank
Take it serious. So thank you, Molly, for all that you've done so far. We wish you the best. We wish you nothing but best and positive vibes going towards you. And then Mr. Dr. Clardy, he will be closing us out. But before we do that, make sure you know how to get in touch with Molly. The information is in the comment section where you can give her some moolah, some dinero, some muchas grandes, some money,
some cheddar.
Okay. Yes. Oh yeah, cheddar. I forgot that one. And make sure that you all the cheddar is there. Lettuce, right? The lettuce. We could go on forever.
That's it.
You and me, we could go on forever. But she was, oh my goodness, she was a great guest, wasn't she?
Very impressive candidate, very well informed on the issues. And I think she's got the chops. I think she can do it.
Yeah. I know she seems sincere.
She's going to be,
she has that.
And she'll be a great agent of change.
Yes. Yes. So, Dr. Clardy, you can close us out. But before we do, just want to make sure that you go to that Facebook page to join the Project 2025 discussion group. Everybody needs to really know some of what's in there because it is crucial to your life. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, other, green, indie, it doesn't matter. It's going to affect you and your families to come. So, Dr. Clardy, if you could close us out, it's been great hosting with you today. I really appreciate it.
Kimberly, it's been great working with you as always. This was a great night. I knew it would be, and I just want to thank you for that. Nate, thank you for producing. Molly, thank you for being on. This has been a remarkable night in America, and it gives me hope for the future. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 401c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, or CAVE, and we are proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. That is critical. Next week's show will feature Aaron Viles. If you got a question or a suggestion for a guest, put it in the chat or message us directly. Production of episode 169 was done by the amazing and multi-talented Nate Orshan, who also wrote and performed our theme song. You can find more information at natosongs.com. Now, if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcast, and our shows are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening to right now. Logo and some graphic content are provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Thank you all for listening tonight. We'll see you next week.
Tell me,